Hi, second graders. Today in reading, we are going to work on a skill called the main idea and details of a passage. The main idea is something that's going to help you understand a little bit more of what you're reading, especially this week. This week, we're going to read something in our Green Reader called nonfiction. And it's always important to think about what was the main idea of that story or that passage, especially in nonfiction. So I'm going to share a web with you, and I'm going to share a passage with you today. So get ready to be thinking. Get that thinking voice ready. Here we go. I have in front of us a web. A web is a way to organize information, to organize our thoughts. So the box at the top is all by itself because when I'm reading this week, I want to think after I've read, what was the most important idea about the topic? The topic is what the passage or selection could be about. And I'll model that in a minute. After I think about what was the most important idea of the topic, I need to think about the details. What else did the author tell me that were small pieces of information that tell more about the main idea? They really make it more interesting when they add those details, just like you might do in your writing. You add more details to make it more interesting. So I have a passage today, and you can probably tell by looking at the picture what the topic is. This is going to be about horses. But when we think about horses, there's so many things about horses. We can talk about the size of horses. We can talk about what they eat, where they live, how they exercise. So I'm not sure what the author is going to give me for the main idea about horses here. So let's read, and as I'm reading, use your thinking voice. Think about what is being said. Try to visualize it in your head. And also think about what maybe you have heard quite a bit about, what has maybe been repeated, because sometimes that's a huge hint about the main idea. The title is called Learning from Horses' Ears. I would like to try to zoom in a little bit for you so you can maybe see it. There you go. It says, if you want to know how a horse is feeling, look at the position of its ears. If a horse's ears are slightly forward, the horse is relaxed. Are you visualizing that? I've heard the word ears mentioned several times so far in this passage. So my brain's already thinking, I'm wondering if that's maybe the main idea. Let's keep reading. If its ears move forward more, it may indicate interest. If one ear is back, the horse is most likely listening to something behind him. Interesting. I never knew that before. Ears that are flicking back and forth indicate that the horse is feeling anxious. Anxious means maybe a little nervous or worried about something. So I visualize some horse's ears kind of going back and forth, and that makes me now know that he's anxious or maybe a little worried about something. If both of the horse's ears are straight back, it's a clear sign that the horse is upset and may be about to bite, kick, or run away. If you are near a horse and see this, move away to protect yourself from injury. All right, so what did we hear a lot about in this passage? What did you hear maybe mentioned more than once? I sure heard the word ears a lot. I heard it up in the title. It was in the very first sentence. And then I kept hearing about the different way the ears might be positioned or might be on a horse. So even though this is about horses, that's the topic. The main idea is about the position of the ears, the way the ears are on a horse, whether they're forward or backwards or flicking back and forth. And that was mentioned in the very first sentence. I'm going to underline that. Sometimes in a passage or a story, the very first sentence might give you a good clue about what is the main idea. Not always, but that's a good place to start. So if I'm saying to myself, I think this passage is all about horses' ears, I'm going to make sure that the rest of this passage only talks about the ears. This passage should not talk about what horses eat, or maybe where horses live, or how big a horse can get. If the main idea is just about the ears, all of these sentences then would be the details. They would be the details that make it more interesting. So I am just kind of looking, I'm kind of rereading in my mind, and I do see lots of details about those ears. So my main idea of this passage is not about horses. It's about the position of horses' ears. Tell how it is feeling. And that's okay. I went outside of my box, and that's okay. So that is the main idea. But to make it more interesting, the author wanted to give us some more small details that tell more about this. Because if I heard this main idea, I'd want to know, what do you mean? Can you give me an example? Can you give me a detail? And sure enough, we can go back up into this passage and we can find those details, those small pieces of information. I remember hearing, and I can go back up to look, that when the ears are forward, they're interested in something. So I'm going to write it. I'm not worried about making a complete sentence. I just want to prove that this is the main idea. I found some more information. So I'm going to make it say forward ears, and I'm going to just put a dash. That means they're interested. What else do I remember? Oh, I remember that when the ears were flicking back and forth. That was something that really stuck out in my mind as I was reading, that the horse was feeling anxious. So flicking ears mean they're anxious. And it's okay, I'm copying it right from my passage. I'm looking right up in my passage for these details. Was there another piece of information that maybe you remember? Oh, that one at the end I kind of really remember. They say when the ears are straight back, the horse is upset. So, once again, I'm copying it right from the passage. Straight ears mean it's upset. The horse is upset. So I read this passage more than once. I've looked at it more than once. This is nonfiction. This is true facts about horses, and specifically about the horse's ears positions, telling us how the horse is feeling. So when we're doing nonfiction, sometimes we have to read it more than once. We have to go back into the passage to look for our main idea, to go back in the passage and look for those details.